I figure that the main body of a bread activator looks like some kind of giant poofy dress or such, and that the activated bread up top could be considered to be a head. This is the concept around which I created this bread activator person. However, I quickly ran into a problem. I am pretty bad at drawing poofy fabric clothes, so I can only hope that I did well. More research and practice will be needed in future. In retrospect, it makes little sense to have 2 levers and knobs, while only having 1 slot for bread. What happens if you pull only 1 lever? Does the bread get only half activated? Metallic cylinders like the dials are pretty satisfying to draw though. The shading is simple and they're really easy to make look good. For people like me who are good at shading, it's a lot like a skilled assassin taking out a school full of kids. It's an easy way to get satisfying results quickly. It is ridiculous for a character to go unarmed. Only a charlatan and a knave would draw such a character, and so the activator here shall have not 1 but 2 somewhat unnerving bread-y arms with which to grasp and cling at various things. Nothing I create may be entirely wholesome, and so the spindly arms are a necessity. Although I rather regret not adding ambient occlusion to the frontal arm, that was a mistake. I wanted to add a little sketch here to show what happens when he's frightened. The bread goes down. Maybe after a while in this frightened state he gives off the stench of burning bread. I want to say he can also give away the bread for someone to eat and just put in a new slice of bread and that's his head now. If he learns to control his emotions, he can probably run a fairly successful bread activating service. The illustrious pin of rolling. This is a challenge to design, since a rolling pin in reality is little more than a stick of wood with a little knobbly handle at each end. The best way I could immediately think of to make that into a person is to have the exposed flesh play the role of the handles, and the garments be the main body of the rolling pin. As a result, the colours of this person are rather homogeneous throughout, although I did still make the colours more distinct than they would be on an actual rolling pin, taking that artistic license to make obvious the difference between shirt and head. Another unrealistic aspect is how pronounced the wooden texture is. This rolling pin person looks to be very rough, and like grains and flecks of food would get caught in its many crevasses were you to use him to flatten something. Particularly in pixel art, it's pretty gosh diddly fucking hard to render something as specific as smooth wood. So it goes. It is ridiculous for a character to go unarmed. Only a fool and a braggart would draw such a character, and so the pin of rolling here stands with arms clearly visible, T-posing so that these arms together also form the straight line shape of a standard rolling pin. He can roll like this, like I show in this little sketch here, but he can also roll with arms up if he wants to be longer. Glass is an interesting material to draw. Like other materials, there are many ways to draw it, but those ways for glass are vastly different. In this case, I shall settle for only drawing an outline and specular reflections. Many materials have both diffuse and specular reflections, diffuse being the actual colour of the thing, like you would see on a brick, or a waffle, or sand, and specular being the brighter, sharper reflections, as is obvious in things like gold rings, balloons, and bald heads. So what I have done here is completely remove the diffuse outside of the outline and keep only the specular, which as usual I add at the end. Connecting the glass of the blender to the lid, aka the head, is a bit of a tricky thing. In reality, blenders have a very thick connection between torso and head, but people have a very thin connection, called a neck. I tried for a while to do the thin neck, but I don't think it was really working, and so the blender has been changed to a neck-free one. I had wanted to make a complete face with an expression full of rage and aggression, but there's not enough space on the lid, and so eyes only it will be. On the dial here, I employed a funky trick. The diffuse colour of the dial is purple, but the specular colour is blue. I find that using a different colour for different parts of the lighting can add significant gusto to the lighting of an image. You absolutely know that this guy never skips arm day. Good thing I remembered to draw the arms at the last moment. Only a moron and a gobfucker would draw such a character with no arms. Clearly he makes his own protein shakes. Whether those shakes are made of the bones of his enemies or not, I will leave as a mystery and an enigma. A tomato is pretty much just a circle, but of course I have to make this a tomato person, and so more detail than a simple circle will be required. This is fine. It is a perfect excuse to engage in my new favourite hobby, drawing uncomfortably detailed faces in places they don't belong. As shading is my forte and outlines are dead to me, I draw mouths by rendering the shading of the lips rather than by drawing a simple line. I think that this makes it easier to create faces that are a bit disturbing to look upon, which is often my goal. The anatomy of limbs is a hard one. I've done some research into where all these muscle groups and lumps and wrinkles are, but the three-dimensional nature of a limb makes these things pretty hard to grasp quickly. As I understand it, the upper leg, the thigh, is large and rests in front of the lower leg, which in turn consists of the large calf muscle in the back and the thin shin bone in the front. The joint between the two leg halves, however, the knee, I legit have no idea how to draw that. It's a complete mystery to me. Colour schemes are something that I like to ponder these days. Obviously, a tomato is going to be red and green, and I like the way that I extended the colour scheme out to the leggy version of the tomato. Ended up a bit like a yin-yang. The upper half is red with a hint of green in the leaves, and the lower half is green with a hint of red in the shoes. I noticed only after drawing him that this tomato has no arms. An accidental decision that surely reveals that I am an innovator and a sage to boldly omit such an ordinarily crucial detail of a character, such vision, such bravery, never before seen technique. Alright, there's your kitchen object, people. Give me Patreon money or buy my game fisticuffs so that I can frighten some children or something. Bye. Whee!